Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm really excited to share with you guys 5 incredibly affordable wooden rustic DIYs that I put together. Most of the supplies I use are from Dollar Tree, and I really hope you find some inspiration in these projects. So with that said, let's jump right in and get started. For the first DIY, I'm going to make a beautiful wooden round planter basket. So I'll be using this wood round from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut it right in half. So I mark the center, and with a ruler as my guide, which I tape down so it won't move, I score the wood several times with a utility knife until it cuts right through. So now I have 2 halves, which will make the sides of our project. I'm going to stain one side of the halves. I'm using a water-based stain in the shade Special Walnut. Now this is going to be inside, but I still wanted to add a little color to it, although you can leave it as is or paint it another color. So I apply the stain and then I wipe out the excess. On the other side, I'll be using this gorgeous wallpaper with a sticky bottom from Dollar Tree. It has these lovely greenery stems with muted shades of green. So what I'll do next is cut the wallpaper to fit the 2 halves of the wood. I simply trace the shape onto the wallpaper. Now you will need 2 pieces to completely cover the wood, but while they almost fit perfectly, they're just a tad bit too long. So before I place the wood on top, I do peel that little strip on the back side to expose the sticky bottom, and then I place the wood down on a corner. And that just keeps it from moving around while I trim the wallpaper down. I do the same thing with the other half, removing that little strip and then placing the wood on top and trimming it down to size. And then I just pull out the backing paper and smooth out the wallpaper. To frame the basket, I'll be using a couple of these wooden wreath base from Dollar Tree. Instead of wood, it has that cardboard craft paper texture, so I'm going to paint over that with a similar shade. And I'm just mixing apple barrels, territorial beige, and khaki. So I brush that on all over the rings, the front, the back, and the sides. Now since I will be gluing the wood on each of them, I do try to make sure to not apply any paint on half of one side. Next, I'll be using some white string from Dollar Tree, about 5 feet in length, as well as a handful of popsicle sticks, about 15 or so, although I do end up using more. And I dry brush some white chalk paint over them. I do want it to look kind of weathered, so I just lightly go over them a couple of times, making sure there isn't too much paint on the brush. Next, I place the rings together, and I'm going to wrap the string a couple times around to hold them in place. I'm not going to use the whole string just yet. I just want it to hold the rings together at the top so that I can figure out the width of the base. This will also help me determine how short to trim the popsicle sticks. But if you prefer a wider base, you can also use longer sticks. And once I determine that, I trim a stick to fit. And I just apply some hot glue on the ends and place it on the bottom of the circle. And then I continue to mark and trim a couple more of the sticks, and I glue them in place, spacing them out a bit. I glue down about 4 sticks. And now that the rings are positioned correctly, I go back and finish wrapping the string on top. This is going to serve as the handle, so it needs to be placed at the center top, and I just keep that in mind and use it as a guide as I'm placing down the base. So I just continue gluing down the base, measuring them and trimming them down. Also, the higher up you go, the sticks will need to be cut at an angle, so I just mark that and I trim the sticks to match as much as possible. But really no big deal if it doesn't. This is going to be covered by the sides, so unless you're looking for it, you won't notice it too much. How far up you want the sticks to go is really up to you. You can have it go as high up as you want, or up until it reaches the top of the wood. I decided to have it go just a bit under the top of the half wood. Now, unless you'll be hanging this, you'll want to place a couple of dowels or blocks underneath to keep it from rocking. But first, I'm going to glue the wood to the sides. You can use wood glue or hot glue or a combo of both. So I just apply the glue along the bottom curve, and then I attach that on one side of the ring, making sure to push it down so that it's flush on the bottom. I place some clamps around to make sure it bonds tightly together, and I give it a little bit of time to bond, and then I apply glue on the other half, and then I glue that in place on the other side. Once that's dried, I glue a couple dowels on the bottom to keep it from rocking, and this DIY is done. This video is sponsored by June's Journey. Now I've got an amazing game recommendation for you called June's Journey. It's a very exciting detective game where you search for hidden objects, and you also get to remodel and customize your garden island and mansion. The game takes you back to the glamorous 1920s, and you are immersed in this captivating murder mystery through these interesting characters. The main character is June Parker, and she is on a mission to solve her sister's murder. The mystery plays out as you find clues and search for objects in different parts of the mansion. Of course, as a crafter, my favorite part is decorating the mansion. I love the beautiful details and the fact that I have so many options to customize the scenes and give it my own personal touch. Make sure you download June's Journey for free. The link will be in the description box below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. It's available on Android and iOS devices, as well as on the PC through Facebook Games. For the next DIY, I will be using burlap canvases from Dollar Tree, and I'll be using 4 for this project. The first step is to remove the burlap, which I'll be using later. I just want to reposition it, so I need to pull out the staples. Now, to be honest, I didn't realize there were going to be this many staples. This was definitely the longest part of this project and my least favorite. Also, there were some staples holding together the front corners, which I did remove, and I also reinforced any shaky joints with some wood glue. I'll be gluing these 4 wooden frames together to look like a window pane, just like so. This is Super Glue's wood glue, which I got at Dollar Tree. I want the front to be even and flush, so I do make sure the back is what's facing up. I clamp the frame together, and I just continue applying the glue and clamping to ensure a tight bond. Once it's dried, I turn it over and I give it a light sanding. For any areas where there are visible holes or gaps, I just smooth on some spackle over that to cover and smooth it out. I let it dry a bit, and then I sand those areas again just to smooth things out even more. I'm going to dry brush on some white chalk paint. This one's from FolkArt, and I'm just using a chalk paintbrush, and I lightly go over the frame. I really don't want it to go on too opaque. I do want it to look a bit distressed and weathered with some of the wood underneath peeking through. Next, I will be gluing the burlap back on, and so I trim one down to fit a frame. And then I glue it down on the back. I apply a strip of glue on one side of the frame, and then I attach the burlap to that. And as I'm gluing, I make sure that it's glued nice and tight, gently pulling the fabric, especially after I get 2 sides down. I did switch to a roller cutter, which cuts smoothly and much more quickly. And then just continue gluing down the rest of the burlap, applying hot glue on the frame, one side at a time, making sure to gently pull it back so that it goes on nice and tight. I really love how this is looking already. Now to finish it off, I place a little hook in the center. You can also use command hooks if you want to remove it later and change things up. And then just attach a little tin bucket to that. You can place some flowers or greenery inside, or attach a little wreath on the hook instead. And we are done! I really love how this one turned out. For the next project, I will be using some scrap wood that I had on hand. This is a 1 by 8 inch pine I trimmed from an 8-foot board from Home Depot. Generally, it's more cost-effective to purchase wood from a hardware store. You can also find affordable wood at Dollar Tree. Although it may not be as thick as this one, they do have good alternatives. I'll be staining the wood using Behr's water-based stain in the shade Special Walnut. And then just apply that on all over the wood, front, back, and sides. And of course, after that, I wipe it down and remove any of the stain that hasn't absorbed. Underneath the wood, I'll be gluing 4 of these wooden dice, and so to match, I stained them as well with the same Special Walnut stain. I love the stain. It has a very rustic finish. I got the stencil pack at Walmart. It came with 2 different designs, and I thought this tile design would be perfect to stencil on top of the wood. So I position it right in the center, and then I tape it down with some painter's tape so it won't move. If you want, you can also apply a thin layer of Mod Podge on top, letting that dry completely before continuing on. I'll be going over the stencil with white chalk paint from FolkArt, and I make sure to dab out some of the paint before going over the stencil. So I apply going in circular motions until it's completely covered. Once I'm done, I carefully peel back the stencil, and wow, so beautiful, and I'm glad there's no smudges. Once the paint has completely dried, I turn the wood over and then I glue the dice on each corner. I use a tumbling block to make sure I place it down evenly on the corners, pushing it in a bit. Now the last thing you'll want to do is seal it, especially if you're placing objects on top, and this rustic wooden riser is done. Now I still had a couple more of the burlap canvases, and I wanted to make a simple wooden lantern out of them. So for this DIY, I'll be using 2 burlap canvases from Dollar Tree. First thing I'm going to do is remove the staples back and front. You will be seeing all sides of the wood, so you'll definitely want to remove all the staples and burlap. I do also reinforce any of the joints that are wobbly with some wood glue. Then I sand it down, and then I cover up the holes and gaps with a little bit of spackle. And once that dries, I sand it down. The frames are going to cross each other, and so on one of them I'm going to mark the center, which is about 4 inches, and then I take the other frame and lay that on top right in the center, and then I mark the width. And then I trim that piece that I marked out with my miter box and saw. I'm going to dry brush some white chalk paint on the frames, and I just lightly brush that all over, not making it go on too opaque, because I do want some of the wood underneath to still be seen. To glue together, I apply some glue on the ends of the cut wood, and I place that right in the center of the frame like so. I stand it up and push them together, and I use a little block to help with that. But you want to make sure that the bottoms lay flat and stands evenly with the other frame. And I do the same thing with the other cut wood, making sure it's glued right in the center and the bottoms are flat on the surface and not wobbly. For the base, I'll be using the square palette from Dollar Tree. I cut out the string hanger that's on the back. It was too hard to remove the staple, so I just snipped that off. I will be painting them white to match the lantern, so I brush that on all over the palette. Now it did go on opaque. I didn't use a bright brush and I thought it was going to look okay, but in the end it didn't really match, so I ended up sanding it down a bit and it looked a lot better. Now when you drop the palette in place, it's going to be wobbly because of the 2 wood pieces on the back, so to fix that you will want to place some wood underneath to balance it out. You can trim some paint sticks or stack some popsicle sticks and that will balance it out. And this simple lantern is done. The last DIY is going to be a quick one. I'll be using the square wooden dry erase board from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut out a piece of the stem wallpaper that we used earlier to fit. Before I stick on the wallpaper, I paint the wood portion white. Now this was actually going to be the base for the lantern, which is why I'm painting it white. I ended up liking the palette better, so instead of scrapping this, I decided to turn it into a DIY on its own. So you will have to let me know which one looks better. To stick, I just peel back a corner exposing the sticky bottom, and then I place that down on the corner, and then I just pull out the backing paper and smooth out the wallpaper. I'll be placing 4 craft cubes underneath. These are from Dollar Tree and I paint them white to match. And then I just hot glue them on the back corners like so. And finally, I decided to sand it down a bit with a fine grit sanding sheet, just to soften the white and have it look a bit weathered. And we are done. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to click that notification bell so that you don't miss any of my new videos. Again, thank you to June's Journey for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to download June's Journey. It is free. You can check out the link in my description box below, or you can also scan the QR code. Until next time, bye!